In this video I'm going to give an overview of how to fit this coaxial connector onto this length of standard RG6 satellite or TV aerial cable. Okay, the coaxial connectors you see in front of me are still very popular in the industry. They're used in conjunction with TV aerials, and they come standard on almost all televisions. Okay, so fitting them here is, you know, it's somewhat of an acquired skill. It's very easy once you get used to it, but the initial times putting on can be a little bit complicated, and this is the purpose of the video, just to give a quick overview of it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble the coaxial connector here and simply show you the four component parts of it. So there's an outside casing here. This here is a clamping mechanism, and then we have a holding mechanism here for holding the central copper cable, and then we have the rest of the casing here. So the next step is I'm going to come along, I'm going to use the snips here, and I'm going to pare down from about 20 millimeters from the top of the cable here. We're going to make a series of small cuts just into the outside casing, no further than that, and then I'm going to make an incision at 90 degrees to that, straight down the center. What we're trying to do is remove the outside protection layer without cutting off this copper braiding that's here. So we pull down the copper braiding that's here, and we'll wrap it in a clockwise direction here. And what we'll do then is we'll break off of a length of foil here, which we won't actually need for this part of the process. Okay? So the next thing I will do here is I'll simply come around, get my snips again, and I'll cut off about another 4 millimeters down. I'll cut off this inner insulation here, and when I do that successfully all the way around, it will expose the central copper core. Okay, this is what really carries the TV signal for you. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually assemble the coaxial, or the coaxial connector. So I'll slide on the first part of the casing here. The next thing I'll do is the locking mechanism here. I might need just to slightly pull out the sprongs like that and slide that into position, and then I just squeeze them back with my hand like this. Next I'll come along and I'll get this central section here, and what I can do then is, just before I do that, I'm just actually going to shorten this cable slightly right here, and I'll come down along and just slide that on like this, and I'll put on the outside casing like this. Now the vital thing to remember here is that we do not want the outside copper braiding to be touching the central wire. If it does, it'll short out and it'll cause an awful lot of interference problem. Effectively, this coaxial connector then will be no good. So that's the key point we want. So the next part here is just to slide this back on, push it on like this, and start it to lock it into position. And as we're doing this, what will happen is that the locking mechanism inside will be forced to catch tighter and tighter onto the coaxial cable to a point where we get a good solid connection like that. Okay, so now we've successfully put it on, and before we'll say we actually go and push this into, we'll say, a coaxial joiner, which I'll show you in a second, we just sometimes can use the snips just to make sure that the central part is central. Okay, so we can slide on quite neatly. So I have a coaxial joiner here, so I'll just probably slide it on like that, and we can then come along and join two coaxial cables together like that. Okay, now what other connectors might you use this in conjunction to, or what alternatives are there available in terms of TV connectors? Well, this here, which I've just demonstrated, is called a coaxial joiner. So we basically slide the two of them together, so and join from the far side. Now, coaxial joiners are great and they have their purposes, but the industry will say, in terms of the satellite receivers, all the rest of it, always use a different type of connector, which is this connector over here, which is called an F joiner. And the reason they like to use that is it's quicker and easier to put on. It's a lower cost connector, but also more importantly, it gives a much better, a much lower interference connection. So you'll find with all satellite receivers that it'll actually come with this type of connection, and you'll just screw directly onto it. And there's also a whole range of other connectors we have. Apart from F connectors, the standard twist-on ones, we also have compression ones, which give a very solid lock and are also waterproof. and we also have push-on F connectors, and then we have also hybrid connectors that are coaxial on one side and F-type on the other side. So anyway, hopefully you found this useful in terms of an overview of how to put on a coaxial connector.